You know, Monday marked 22 years since the 9/11 terrorist attacks on our nation. And although we are now 2 decades removed from one of the greatest tragedies in our nation's history, the memories remain in our minds as if it had just happened yesterday. We will never forget. Many of us were here that day, including me, and I certainly will never forget that awful, horrible, tragic day. Those horrific events in New York City, Washington, D.C., and Shanksville, Pennsylvania forever changed the national security of the United States of America. Our nation banded together, and we supported one another as we rebuilt and recovered. As part of our collective response, we saw the beginnings of the global war on terror. Together, with the help of our allies, we made significant progress in countering violent extremism and eliminating the territorial gains that the Islamic State had made. While this threat still remains today, we've made progress in diminishing the ability of terrorists to harm Americans. Now we are again seeing the landscape of our national security shift, as we are facing a new challenge of rising threats from nations like Russia and China. Putin's unwarranted aggression has created a large-scale ground war in the European continent, something that was really nearly unthinkable just a few short years ago. Adding to that, we are witnessing the unprecedented buildup of the Chinese military state. Make no mistake, those Chinese military investments were made with U.S. capabilities in mind. Nations that directly oppose U.S. values and interests are beginning to create an uneasy closeness with one another. Just yesterday, North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, pledged, quote, full and unconditional support for Russia's Vladimir Putin. And we don't know what the behind-the-scenes conversations were or the trade-offs that were made. This is something that we must monitor closely and that demands a collective and united response. The growing threat from China was something that I discussed with United States Indo-Pacific Command leaders when I met with them over August. This is a real threat and underscores the importance of working with our allies in this region. Our allies in the Indo-Pacific area are very important, and when it comes to both deterrence efforts and facilitating U.S. operations in the event of a crisis of conflict. That cooperation is a key piece in our ability to protect the power that the United States has led with. The AUKUS agreement between Australia, United Kingdom, and the United States further cements this relationship and ensures that we'll become even more interoperable with our allies in the Indo-Pacific. We need to maintain a strong military posture in this region and bolster our cybersecurity and technological abilities to ensure that our nation and our allies will be ready for any and all threats that we may face. The intrinsic relationship between China and Taiwan and Russia and Ukraine cannot be lost on us. There is no doubt that China and Xi Jinping are closely watching Russia's attempted land grab and are taking note of the united resistance that they are now facing. Stopping Russia in Ukraine will send a clear and direct signal to China that violent, unwarranted aggression will be met with a swift and unified response. It is vitally important to recognize that supporting Ukraine explicitly and clearly strengthens our own national security. I truly believe that is a fact. Our support for Ukraine has benefited the U.S. by illuminating vulnerabilities in our own defense industrial base, which we now have the opportunity to remedy. Without this, we might not have discovered these issues until a crisis of our own. And these production challenges would have severely disabled our ability to defend ourselves and strengthen our U.S. warfighters in a time of conflict. It is important to recognize that funding Congress has appropriated in support of Ukraine is going directly back into our own capabilities. This has initiated facility upgrades at our ammo plants. It has boosted production of our defense industrial base sites and funded replenishment of our own U.S. arsenal. As Leader McConnell mentioned on Monday, by showing support for Ukraine, Americans are making strides in our competition with China. We're degrading the Russian military capacity. We are encouraging our allies to buy American, and we are reassuring the importance of investing in our own defense. We have seen this directly from our allies like Australia and Japan, who are making serious investments in their defense capabilities. Or the UK, who has also pledged meaningful military support for Ukraine. Moving forward, NATO members need to take the commitment to pledge 2% of their GDP towards defense more seriously and move at the speed of the threats that we face. One thing is for certain, this is not a time to show weakness. However, President Biden and his administration have unfortunately not shown the strength needed in the face of these rising threats. We saw this in the botched withdrawal in Afghanistan in 2021, where 13 of our service members senselessly lost their lives. Or just this weekend, when President Biden claimed, while he's on a trip to the Far East, we're all better off if China does well. And then on 9/11 of all days, the Biden administration notified Congress that they are negotiating with the leading sponsor of terrorism, Iran, and sending $6 billion in frozen assets with little or no accountability. Actions like these endanger every American abroad and display a level of deficiency that is inconsistent with the true standing and power that the United States has. We are currently at a pivotal moment in our history, both in the history of our nation, but also the history of the world. American leadership has always transcended nefarious forces. That I am confident in. We must always lead with the strength that defines this leadership and work to ensure that our national security remains the foremost priority that it deserves to be. My own state of West Virginia, which has deep roots of military service and patriotism, has established a growing presence and participation in our national defense infrastructure. West Virginia companies and universities are stepping up and are contributing in increasingly important ways to the military-industrial base in this country. From ammunition productions to cybersecurity advancements and critical components for vehicles, aircrafts, and weapons, West Virginia is leading the way. Our country must follow this example and continue this level of investment into our national security, with each and every one of us contributing to the proud tradition of American leadership. With that, Madam President, I yield the floor.